last week we started with the behavior-driven development, and you learned how to write in Gherkin language. And I would say it's good. We've started seeing people sending in their assignments for imperative and declarative way of writing the Gherkin. Thank you very much for that. If you have not submitted, you can still submit and still try and also do more of your own research as well, so you are sure you're getting all of this right. So here we are, behavior-driven development. We know that is what we call BDD. It uses human readable descriptions as the basis for software test. So if you look at it, why do we use this framework? It's better for collaboration and automation. This class is the automation testing. So it's important that we all understand how to write our tests in BDD, so that when we get into the actual stage of writing our code, this understanding is already solidified, and there wouldn't be any ambiguity when the actual hands-on stage is required for everyone to come in and do something. So behavior-driven development is meant to be collaborative, and it has its own benefits. It is all-inclusive, and the way it is written, the expectation is that everyone within a project team, and inclusive of the business or the users, they are expected to collaborate. And in collaboration, you want the business user to come and to have a read of what has been developed. So from that angle, to them, it's a requirement for product owners. If the requirement is written properly, the product owner understands it. It is a form of acceptance criteria for developers. So everyone is engaged in the product development. And to be honest, anyone can write behavior scenarios because it is written in plain language. So the scenarios are also test cases for testers. For an automation tester, it is a script. So they're able to develop their codes from that Gherkin scenario that's been written down, that the tester has written down. Then it also serves as a description for stakeholders. The stakeholders are the non-technical people in the organization. However, they're able to align with the product that is being developed because they can read the Gherkin language. So essentially, all we are looking out from this benefit is the collaborative and inclusiveness that we get from using BDD framework. Another benefit is clarity. When the Gherkin scenario is written, there's a focus on the expected behavior of the product. You're going to see further examples downline as we go. You'll find out that each of the scenario focuses on one specific thing, and the behaviors are described in plain language, and nothing you see there is ambiguous. A simple conversation, clear and clarified. There's no technical jargon in there, so anybody can read it. If you're going to present that to a customer, you are sure that the customer is clear on what you are presenting to him. Streamlining. Now, using the BDD framework, it helps to speed up the development process as well. Why do I say that? Writing the requirement, which is a requirement for the product owner, like we said earlier, and it's an acceptance criteria for the developer, and the developer is actually going to implement that. Once it's written, the developer would implement that. So, and in that process, it is clear to the developer what he needs to implement. So it makes it, each of the steps indicates what needs to be done. So that is where the streamlining comes in. Now, there's a buzzword called shift left. It's a buzzword used in for testing early in the development process. So in some projects, the approach is to start testing as early as possible, and that is standard. That's the industry standard. Now, you want to test earlier, means that there will be fewer bugs down the line. So in BDD, the test case definition becomes part of the requirement. For me, say for example, when you're working within an agile team, and as soon as you have the behavior scenarios written, you have technically started the testing, and automation can theoretically begin. It's really possible for you to write the scenarios, confirm the validity of the scenarios with the stakeholder or the business user, or with the product owner, or with the business analyst. And that is where what we call the three amigos, and everybody is on the same page with it. So in that way, the form of static testing has already happened, and everyone can see that, everyone involved can see that, and everyone is in agreement. And at the time when the code is written for these scenarios, it will be easy to catch any bugs early at the beginning of the development. Now, another benefit is that you could have scenarios running without the code at the back of it. Yeah, they can be run manually. Say you have those scenarios written in Gherkin, and you run them manually because you have not written any automation. And when any test not automated can be added to a backlog to automate in the future. So this is the case where maybe there's so much of the manual testing to do, or there's no test automation resource in the team. So the BDD scenarios written can be executed manually, and it can also be a form of documentation, an artifact. It's a self-documenting artifact for a regret to keep as a regression test suite. That is it basically. So I'm going to move on from there. We also have the automation part. We all know about that. That is what this particular course is about. We are laying this foundation for us to actually go into writing automated tests. So the framework made it easier to turn the scenarios into automated tests. So the steps are already given by the scenarios. You have the given, when, then. Those are the steps. And the automation tester, the automation engineer, simply needs to write a method or function to perform each step. So we have the test-driven benefit as well. I've already mentioned something relating to the shift left approach, which is catching the bugs early. And as we know, the BDD is an evolution of TDD. So in TDD, the scenarios are written from the beginning, and that enforces that the quality first is implemented, and there is a test first mindset. You test that and run it until this you run the scenario to fail, and then the feature is implemented and causes the test to pass. So there's a relationship between the TDD and the BDD as well. And code reuse. With the given when then steps, you're going to see in the further examples, you can always reuse the steps. You can reuse the steps in the scenario, because within each step, there's an underlying implementation for each step, and that does not change. You can you call a step within another scenario. So the automation code becomes what we call modular. Like, it has no dependency on any other step. It can be reused without causing issues on the scenario. Then we have the parameterization benefit. So for scenario steps, they can also be parameterized, and it even makes it more reusable. You reusing the step helps the collaboration. For example, you could have a larger team where we have some automation projects that are shared amongst maybe some agile project teams, and a particular step is kind of core, like a common component, a common component step for automation. So it also inspires a healthy discussion amongst the team, amongst developers and testers when writing the scenarios. Some would say, okay, I think we can improve it, or the discussion could be, oh, it's actually okay as it is. I only need to change the parameter for my project, for what I'm doing. So that there's a benefit in that, and it still goes back to collaboration, if you see what I'm saying. So that I'll look at the final one, adaptability. Now, in this case, the scenarios are easy to update as the product changes. Say, for instance, a feature has been implemented, and some form of change is going on within that particular feature, and it's going to affect a particular step in two ways. For example, maybe a new step is being introduced before the existing step, or the existing step is going to change for some reason, or a different step is going to be introduced for the current step. So in this case, what you basically do, if the scenario is already in existence in your automation project, all you basically do on your BDD scenario is just to introduce that one step that has been introduced before the existing step that has been working normally. You introduce that, or you apply the change to the particular step that is impacted. So, and also you can also filter the scenarios by adding tags. We are going to talk about that, by adding tags, and tags will help you help to decide what test would run and what test would not run. Any questions? If you have questions, you can put them in the chat box. At some point, I would break to have a look at the questions and respond to them accordingly. So when you create your BDD feature, in this case, you'd use spec flow or cucumber, for example. You have there's a template for it. You give a name to your feature. Yeah, that's where I've named this feature title. You give a name to your feature. Say, if you are an explicit name. For example, I'll use the simplest one that everybody would identify with, login. Yeah, or search, or registration. That's quite explicit. You know that whatever scenario you're writing in there is related to login or registration or search. The template also gives you the opportunity to be able to put a short introduction of what you want to do, what you want to benefit from this particular feature. And it comes in this template as a user or as a customer, depending on what persona is applicable to that particular product, or the role of the user, or as a fund manager, as a front office user. So it is clear and specific, for the reader, especially the stakeholders. They know when they are reading it, they know that, oh, this particular gherkin is related to a fund manager role, or it's related to a front office user role, or is related to an administrator role. So it gives you that template and you're able to put that there. So that's the person who will benefit from the feature. And what do they want to achieve? I want the login feature so that the benefit of value, so that they get the benefit or the value of the feature. So I want the login feature so that I can log into my profile, so that I can get access to ABCD application. So it makes it, the description makes it explicit and clear to anyone reading this. So a description of each specific scenario of the narrative with the following structure. We already know that our gherkin has got the given, when, then structure. The given showing us the initial context at the beginning of the scenario, which I would call the preconditions, what needs to be in place, or what you need to do before you go into the actual action. And then we have the when. The when triggers the scenario, is a trigger for that action. So the when clearly states what is exactly done, or what needs to be done, or what action is being triggered. Then indicates the expected outcome in one or more clauses. So then tells us the result. So if you put that at the back of your mind, that when you're writing the given, when, then, you write it with the understanding in mind that the action happens at the when clause and the result happens at the then clause. Yeah, it makes it easy for you when you're writing your gherkin. And we also need to pay attention to some keywords Yeah. So for the keywords, each line that isn't a blank line has to start with the Gherkin keyword. Yeah, we know that. Then followed by any text you like. The only exceptions are the feature and the scenario descriptions. And what are the primary keywords? We have the feature, we have the given, when, then. We have the and. You can use the and with the given, the and with the when, and with then. You can use but. You know, from my own personal experience, I use but mostly when I'm logging a bug. You know, when I write my given, when, then for the bug that I found, uh then being the expected result, but the but being what I've actually seen, you know, what I've seen rather than what I was expecting. That's how I have used but basically, and it has worked for me, on the projects when I'm doing that. So in the yeah, for the gherkin as well, you have the background. You can use a background, and you can have a scenario outline. Scenario, or call it a scenario template, but mostly when you have your cucumber, what you writing underneath, the heading you have there is called the scenario outline, and you can have examples as well. And we have a few secondary keywords as well. We have the document strings. For the strings, you're able to pass your parameters. We have the data tables. You can see how that is being represented. And you have the tags. For the tags, you use your @ and specify the tags. For the tag, it could be, you could give it a name. Say, for example, @smoke. That means you are saying that this particular scenario I've written is a smoke test. It could be, you could name your tag smoke test. You could name your tag regression test. You could name your tag, excuse me, you could name your tag, this is a bug. As a tester, you need to be organized with your test as well. So this tagging helps to filter what test you want to run and what tests you don't want to run at any given time. And you also have your the comments as well. You have the comments as well. You can always add your comment in the Gherkin syntax. However, the comments are only permitted at the start of a new line, anywhere in the feature file. You know, our comment begins, the comment begin with a hash sign, and you type the text for the comment. You will just, it's not a text that you need in your feature to run or to execute. Maybe you just want to add a comment to say, add a comment and just say, still in progress, just some text in there. So you can, unlike if you were in the Java class, when we had to look at adding comments in the code, you could block, you could have a few lines and then have a block comment for those lines, rather than just commenting one step after the other. But Gherkin at the feature file at this currently does not support the block comment. You have to put it in front of each of the text on the page. So that is how that works. You're going to see all of that when we actually go into the practical and so on, but it's important that you understand all of this and you know how this works. As you can see at the top here, I've put this in bold. There's a hash sign here. This is a comment. This is just saying this test is for the login, covering both valid and invalid. You know, you could take it off. If you don't really, once you're done with it, and you add it, this text could have something like, oh, this is still in progress, you know. So that's just a comment. That's what it is. Then we have your feature. This is an example. You have a feature here, you have a scenario here, and you have a comment at the top of it. And you can also comment, any text in here, okay? But I see no reason why you want to do that. However, sometimes maybe you're debugging or something within your scenario, you could add a comment in here. You could put a hash tag in here. So that comments out that particular step, you know. So that's what this hashtag does for you when you're applying that. Now we've got indentation. It's important that when you write in your gherkin, you are well organized with it, and what needs to be indented is indented, and what doesn't need indentation shouldn't have indentation. So the recommended indentation level is 2 spaces, and your feature is easy to read. It gives you that good view of your test, of your scenarios. Now, let's have a look at this. You have the feature at the top, login, and it's obvious here that there's like 2 indentation spaces here. As a user of Gifttree, I want to log into Gifttree so that I can join Blue Sky community on Gifttree. This is the feature, this is your description, and you can see your narrative, your description here has got indentation. It separates your feature clearly. You know that's your feature, and you know that is your narrative, your description. You have your hashtag in here and a simple scenario, yeah, for valid login. Given I am a Gifttree user, when I log into Gifttree, then I am logged in successfully, then I'm logged in. However, this is just a 3-step scenario, a simple and straightforward one. The indentation you see here are actually they are actually clear. You could decide not to put the indentation. However, it's good practice so that everything aligns properly and you are consistent with it, because from writing this scenario, it's possible you have another scenario to write. You just ensure you are consistent with it. So we go to our feature. What is the purpose of our feature keyword? It helps to provide a high-level description of the software feature and to group related scenarios. So if your feature is login, you would want to put all the login scenarios under that feature. You don't want to create a feature login and there's another feature search and you're looking and you can find your login feature, one of your login scenarios under your search. That is not acceptable. The first primary keyword in a Gherkin document must always be feature, and followed by the short text that describes the feature that I've explained in the previous slide. Then you can add some text underneath as description, which is what we've seen earlier. Now, some of you would say, is everything mandatory? Do we have to put it? I would say yes, your scenarios are mandatory, they need to be there. Your feature is mandatory, needs to be there. However, your description is optional. To be honest, you may decide not to put the description there. But if you look at it from the angle of who is going to benefit from this particular scenario that I'm writing, from this particular feature, BDD feature test I'm writing, and you know that your users will benefit from it, say maybe you're able to generate an HTML report for them, and the description, the feature on the HTML report contains all the details. If that is the case for you, I would say add the description, even though it's optional. But if that is not really required, yeah, it's optional. And actually in Cucumber, it has no special meaning. Now, these description lines are ignored by Cucumber at runtime. That is true. At runtime, it doesn't take that into consideration. It doesn't need to run the description. I'm talking about the description as a user. I want to be able to do this so that I can do ABC. That is what I'm describing as the description. So the purpose is to document important aspects of the feature. It gives a brief explanation and a list of business rules. It gives you that information. And so trust me, if you are a tester and you are not the tester that started the project from the scratch in that team, and you get handed over a project, an automation project, and the person that handed it over to you has handed over a project with only the feature name or feature title, no explanation, nothing in the description, you know, you can imagine how you would feel with that, because that kind of gives you a brief summary of what those scenarios in that particular feature contains. You know, there's no worry. You're like, okay, I have a vague understanding. At least there's a summary that tells me what type of user is going to use this is going to use this feature. However, if you don't have it, so that's it. It gives you more work to do. You have to go to the BA. You have to check. You have to do a lot of findings and research yourself. But if you're on a project and somebody has handed over everything to you with all the details in there, you would appreciate it more and understand why, even though it's optional, it doesn't run at, it's not taken into consideration at runtime by Cucumber. However, it benefits you and it makes your work easier. So the description of the feature ends when you start a line with a keyword background, when you start the line with the rule, example, or scenario outline. Now you can place tags above the feature as well to group related features. You can place tag above the scenarios. That's independent of your file and directory structure. Then you can write anything you like, as long as no line starts with a keyword, which is clear. This is an example. As a user of Giftread, I want to log into Giftread so I can join Blue Sky community on Giftread, and you can add any other thing you want to add. Simple. Now, as I'm talking to you, imagine we don't have all of this there. And somebody hands this over to you. And you are a tester, and actually it's your first testing role. I just need you to put it in the chat box. Would you be 100% on a scale of 1 to 10? How satisfied would you be if you have it as this example? Yeah. Or if you have it as this example? Can I have answers in the chat box? Eight. Okay. 2 out of 10 without the description. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. At least we've got a couple of answers. Thank you so much. So the reason, the thing is, if you are like new to the testing world, you would most likely prefer it to be to come up as this, you know, because you are still like, oh, still trying to understand this. But however, maybe you've been doing testing before and you've had some exposure to automation test projects, you're not going to mind if this part of the feature is not included. So that's why I'm saying that it's though it's optional, it does not it's not executed at runtime. This is what is executed at runtime, but when it's there, it's still beneficial. Thank you for all the responses. Now, given. The given steps are used to describe the initial context of the system. We've talked about that. The purpose of giving steps is to put the system in a known state before the user starts interacting with the system. Yes, we talked about that. And given to be your preconditions, I already mentioned that. And it is okay to have several given steps. All you just continue to put after is and until all your preconditions are completed. Okay? Now, let's have a look at this example. I've got my description here. As a user of GiftTreat, I want to log into GiftTreat so that I can join Blue Sky community on GiftTreat. And I've got my valid login here, and this is my given. Now, when I said you can have a lot of steps for given, and if you want to write it in a way that shows this, given I open a browser, given I navigate to GiftTreat, given I click on log on, I mean, this is too much of tautology. So you can replace this given with and the next step with and. As you can see, when you're done with all of that, then you can move on to your when, okay? I hope this is clear. Your when steps are used to describe an event or an action. I said it earlier. When you're writing your gherkin, always remember your when should show action. Your when should tell you that something is being triggered or something has to be triggered, and the person interacting with the system, the action can be the person interacting with the system, or it can be an event triggered by another system. But we know it is the action that gives us the result. But the foundation and things that need to be in place are in the given. So we have an example here for the when. You can have actions that needs to be done as well in multiple steps. So rather than writing, when I click on sign in, when I enter the email address, when I enter the password, you know, when I click on submit, you replace the when with and. Okay? That is the when for you here. Then steps are used to describe an expected outcome or result. Ultimately, note it, your then should give you your expected outcome or result. And the outcome should be an observable output. You are able to observe it, you're able to see it, you're able to read it. So the then, when you want to write the code, that is where you add an assertion. You add an assertion. There you are validating where your results, or whether your results or your outcome are as expected. You are able to compare the actual outcome with what the actual outcome generated by the system to the expected outcome, what the step says the system should do. So some comparison goes in there at the then step when you get to write the code. An example. If you look at the scenario from the top here for valid login, given I open a browser, and think about it this way. If I don't open a browser, I cannot click on sign in where the action starts from. Given I open a browser and I navigate to gifttree.com, if I don't go to gifttree.com, there's no way I would get on. When I click on sign in, that is the action. You click on the sign in and you are able to enter your email address because you need, these are the actions that you need to perform for you to get the result. And the name of the user is displayed because that is what you get. The user is logged in and the name of the user is displayed. So as soon as the user logged in, user gets in, the name of the user is displayed. You can see that it's observable and you can actually assert that. Now, if you have successful giving whens and thens, you could write your, you could add your hand to each of those, each of the given, each of the when, each of the then. Now, for these examples, you're looking at the then here. It said that the user is logged in and the name of the user is displayed, but the user cannot see other users' details. Actually, the user should not be able to see other users' details. This is where I say that I use bot basically where I'm logging a bug. So, for example, if a user logs in and the name of the user is displayed, where the bot will come in is that even though the name of the user is displayed, please listen carefully. I'm just giving you an example of something that I've seen before. Even though the name of a user is displayed and the user has logged in, the name of the user displayed did not tally with the name of that is expected to be displayed. And that is where the bot comes in. So in this case, this will be, but the user can see other users' details. That is the situation where I would use bot. But for the purpose of this example, we'll just take this example as it is. But in a situation where you log in with a particular name A, and when you log in, the login was successful. However, the name appearing on that user page is showing name B. That is a step where I usually use bot. Because from the beginning of this scenario up to this point, everything expected has happened. It's displaying a name, but the name displayed is not the name expected. So that's the situation where I've consistently used bot when I'm writing my gherkin. I'm sure when you get hands-on, if you find those, you can find those kind of bugs even when you're doing manual testing. But if you want to write in gherkin to hand that over to a developer, you can actually use bot because your then has given you the result, but there's something else that is happening here. Now, we also have a background. We mentioned that earlier. The background is placed before the first scenario or the scenario outline at the same level of indentation. Now, occasionally you'll find yourself repeating the same given steps in all of the scenarios. Like you have like 3-4 scenarios and all your given steps are the same, and you have 5 scenarios, all your given steps are the same. You can move these common given steps and make them the background, and by grouping them under a background section, because your given steps are not changing in any way. That's what you continue to have if you have those scenarios. So, and that is where you can have this example. Now we have the feature. This particular description is not strange to you. I'll move on to the valid login. You have valid login, you have invalid login details, and you have an invalid password scenario. Now, if you look at this, your given step here says, given I open a browser and I navigate to giphy.com and I click on login for the valid login step. If you look at here, you have the same steps for the invalid login details, and you have the same steps for your given for the invalid login details. So what do you do with this one in Gherkin? You can move that to the background. So what you have here is a background. So you have that name background here. Actually, you should have the background here in here. Yeah, you have the background here. So on your feature file page, you have that background named at the top of this particular block of your given steps, and you have your scenario, and you have, so for every time you run each of these scenarios, this gets executed as a background. It gets executed and you're on the login page. And there's actually a way that this can be executed. This can be executed by just opening a single browser that you buy, and this can be done maybe when you are able to retain the session login in your code. And that I think that happens in the hooks. You can there's some implementation needs to happen there, but let's not go too technical tonight. But we need to understand that you can have your scenarios written this way and have this as your background. You're giving steps as your background. Now let's move on to parameterization. For parameterization, what do you do? Now you want to write for a quick example for the login. Your username and the password are your parameters. So when we say parameterization, what we are trying to do is to pass those username and password parameters as values to your Gherkin steps. I hope I am making some sense. Your parameters for login are the username and password. Your parameter values, yeah, are the actual username, say xyz@yahoo.com, okay, and the password 123. Those are your values. So you're passing values to the steps. That's what it means. You have your data table. You can also parameterize using the data table. There's a table function that you can use to add your parameter, pass your parameter values to the steps. In the scenario outlines, you can do that too, using the examples. It's in form of a table. You're going to see all of that as well. But that you do that one just on that, in that scenario as well. So when you want to pass values to a step, you use the quote. You can pass the value directly. Okay? Just to make this a bit more clear, let me do this. Look at this particular step. When I click on sign in, that's my action, and I enter the user name. The username is a parameter. Can you see how I have written that? However, test@yahoo.com is my parameter value. If we understand that, can we put something in the chat, please? If you understand what I just explained, okay, yeah, thank you. There's just a response from one person. Thank you. It's important you get this, because you're going to get on a project and you want to talk in your team. There's a developer there, there are testers there, there are business analysts there, the stakeholders are there, and they're saying to you, what parameters are you using? Oh, we are using the username and password parameter. But the parameter values are your test data. I hope you understand. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, someone has given me the clear to proceed. Okay, now, and the other step, and I enter the password. So you've passed your value using the quote. At runtime, your scenario should pick up these values if you have written your code correctly. Now, let's look at this data table. Given I open a browser and I navigate to giphy.com and I click on login, when I click on sign in and I enter the email address, my email address is this, and I enter the password, my password is here. I'm actually saying that I want to use a data table for this. Okay. And when I am writing my code at the back of this, I'm going to use the table function. Okay. So when you see something like this, you know that what is being used, what is being expected to happen at the back of this particular step is the table function. So the same way, yeah, is the same example we've given there, and that is the login scenario. You could have it, you could separate it, okay? And you could have it all together. And I enter email address and password, but this is, and I enter email address and I enter password. But here it says, and I enter email address and password. You're putting everything together. So when you're passing your arguments in the step definition, which is what we call the template where you get to write your code or function, you are going to make use of the table function for this scenario to pick up these parameters at runtime. Thanks. So the scenario outline, you use that as well to run the same scenario. When you have scenario want to run the same scenario multiple times. So you could have you can collapse two similar scenarios, yes, into a scenario outline. Yeah, that is very correct. It allows us to more concisely express these scenarios through the use of a template with these delimited parameters, as you can see there. A scenario outline must contain an example section. Yeah. One thing you need to also note is that when you're writing, you're building, you could be getting some errors, and the errors are just pointing to where you have your feature login. Sometimes it could be that you have included an example section under a scenario. You're going to get an error for that when you try to build. Or you have a scenario outline and you have not included an examples section in there. The two go together. With a scenario outline, you must have an example section. So the scenario outline is run once for each row in the examples beneath it. It doesn't count the first header row. The first header row actually gives you the name, the parameter name. That's what it does. You have the parameter itself, the parameter name, and the parameter value. So if there's an example here, this example, as a user of Gifttrade, I want to log into Gifttrade so that I can join Blue Sky community on Gifttrade. Okay. When I and the background, as you can see here, we've included the feature, we've included the background, we've included the scenario outline, and we've included examples. Okay. So we have four of those keywords in here at the same time. And we have the delimiter parameters as well in there. That is where, as you can see, we are not using double quotes for this, because this is that parameter. This is that parameter where we want to store, where our values are going to be stored. Because at runtime, it's going to pick the value that stores into that email address parameter. So now let's go through it. We have a background. And from here, I'm not going to say anything now. I want to know if you're all paying attention to this. Now you have this, these two, okay? How many scenarios are going to run with this? Looking at your given steps and looking at your when and then steps. How many scenarios are going to run for this particular example? Can I get some answers in the chat, please? Oh, you can't see the text. Okay, this is, so my question is, this is a scenario, okay? We have a background. Given this and this and this, my action when this, and this, okay? And I've got examples because what I'm looking at here is the scenario outline, and I'm looking at all of this. So my question is, how many scenarios are going to run for this particular example? Okay, four. Oh, brilliant, fantastic. So they are going to be 4. They are going to be 4. Thank you very much, everyone. They are going to be 4. Because if you look at it this way, so pay attention to what I'm doing now. You could have done this. You could have done this and put this in double quote. Yeah. And done this, correct password. Put this as well in double quote. Yeah. And you could have done this and put this in double quote. I'm just trying to do this so I can remind everyone where we are coming from. Now, you could have done all of this and taken this out. Yeah. So you could have done this But when you do this, okay, and you don't have this as a scenario outline, you take this outline out. Want what you have, you are definitely going to need to ignore this. If you take this outline out and you pass this, correct test, correct at test.com, correct password, and so you would only have this as one scenario. Now, if you have to just add the username, the email address, yeah, because that's what we're using here. I'm having a little bit of lag typing in there. Email address, okay, and here password. And here you have your result. Which is what we had originally. Then you would be able to count each of these as one scenario, the second scenario, the third scenario, and the fourth scenario. So I hope I've made myself clear there. And always make sure that whatever you're passing in here as your parameter, with your parameter delimiter, is what you are putting here. Whatever you're putting here is what you are putting here. If you're putting result here, that's what you put in here. So basically, everyone that said 4, you are correct. So that I'm going to move on to another slide. This one, as you can see, this one hasn't got us passing any parameter in here. It's just the scenario. Okay, let me make this bigger. So you have that example in here. I got to move like this. Okay. So given I open a browser and I navigate to giphy.com and I click on login, and the same scenarios have been splitted into valid login, and invalid password. When I click on sign in and I enter the email address and I enter the password, this is where I'm reading, then the user is logged in and the name of the user is displayed. Those are our assertions. Now, what's happening in here? This is another way of writing your gherkin. You don't know where or what parameter value are being passed for the email address. You don't know where it is for the password. So this is the case where you know, sometimes when you are so comfortable and your coding skills is like, well, this one I don't want to display anything, you know, like there's a way I can hide where my parameter values are. Some people will hide these parameter values in a JSON file. Some will hide it. I think that is the most recent now in the industry. Some will hide it in some will add it in an XML file. You know, some will hide it. Some and I think in the past, well, when we've all first started getting familiar with automation testing, and if it's a data-driven, a high data-intensive application like that, some parameters will just be hidden in an Excel file. You don't, you just need to know how to write your code to read the parameters from the Excel or CSV file. So I'm sure some people still do that these days, you know. So this is what is the kind of scenario that is happening in here. You know that you are entering an invalid email address, but you don't know if it is ayz@yahoo.com or abz, but it is hiding somewhere. It could be hiding in the code. Yeah, some people can hide the parameter values in a class, in a code, and you can read from it. So it could be, so if you find yourselves in such situation, don't worry. All you just need to do, which you're going to learn how to do that, is to learn how to debug. And when you are debugging, it will take you to where the parameter values are hidden. So we have the same here. You can just, you know that this is invalid email address and this is a password. This is an invalid email address password, you know, but you don't know what it is. Unlike here, at least you know that this is correct. At test time, just for example's sake, you know you are passing something at test.com here, and you are passing the correct password. And here you are passing something at test.com, and you are passing an incorrect password. For the purpose of using a real data, the email address is testdj@giphy.com. It could be testdj at the whatever domain name you are using, or asos.com or whatever, or amazon.com. You're adding the right password. Or if it's your Twitter or any of our application, Facebook, at facebook.com. These are real data. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, when you see this on some projects, and you see this on another project, there's nothing to worry about. You can always find whatever implementation that is lying behind a test step. You can always find where it is. Okay, and that is us for the night. Questions, please. Any questions or comments or concerns, or something that still looks not clear, or you want to know what or you need another information relating to this lecture? All right. Yeah, the third scenario is a repetition of the second scenario. Thank you. I noticed that basically. Thanks. Mm-hmm. So what other question have I got in there? Say, was that a pipe delimiter you used in the examples question, in the examples section? Yeah, where you add your the values. Yes. What else? What other question? Please, do I have to understand some elementary before I can understand this? Oh, this is the elementary. You see, one thing I would advise you, if you have to go back and watch the video of the last class, because that was where we started all the Gherkin lecture from. And you can also watch this back, because this video is being recorded. So take this as the elementary, take this as the foundation for you to understand this particular lesson. I don't want to sound like, okay, maybe because I have the understanding, and that's why I'm saying take this as the elementary. Trust me, this is the elementary. because we in the past we just go straight from a manual testing class and teach you a few examples of how to write Gherkin scenarios, and we go straight into you creating your automation test framework. But we thought we need to sort this part of the training out. I laid this foundation for everyone to understand this so that they can move, they are already used to this part of it. And when you're setting up your automation test framework, you're able to relate to what you have picked up from this particular Gherkin foundation lecture. Can a blank password and username field not be a scenario user? Brilliant. You can use blank. You can use blank. See, as a tester, it's important. And I like this question because it tells me that, yes, somebody is really, really looking at this and thinking about how in how many other ways can I test an invalid scenario. Yes, you use blank, blank, blank username, blank password. Definitely yes. Definitely yes. So for the invalid scenario, please, why is the username displayed? I'm not sure I understand that. Invalid scenario, that looks like you're passing an invalid username and invalid password, or you're passing an invalid username and a valid password, or you're passing a valid username or an invalid password. And actually with the question above, you're passing blank username and blank password. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Jeff. Great for that question you asked. Then, can you explain the code we use again and adaptability? Okay, someone said no question, well explained. Okay, I'll go to the code we use and adaptability. Okay. I would. So when we say code reuse, we know that the word reuse means that we want to be able to reuse something. So I'll use an example. I'll use an example here. I think I've got some minutes here. So I'll use an example here. So if you, in terms of code reuse, what it means is that, now look at each of these steps here. As when you write your automation test and you want it to run, you need to write some code at the back of each of the steps. There's a code you need to write. In this context, we are going to be doing automation with Java. You're going to be writing a code in Java behind this step. A code in Java behind this step. Another code in Java behind the step, and another code in Java behind the step. That is where at runtime, the code is executed for each of the steps. Now, you're a non-technical person. Don't even think about the code now. And you're looking at your automation test framework, and the tester has clicked on run for this block of scenario, and the test starts to run. Something is going on in the background that is running the test. First, you need to have an understanding of that. Now, and if we are on the same page now with this explanation, if I want to write another scenario, okay, and I've used, if I want to write another scenario for another project, say for example, This particular one is for giftread.com, okay? Because this is for a user of Giftread. Now, if I want to write another scenario for another website or another application, okay? I've written a Java code for project A for this particular step. And within this particular project, I need to reuse this step. Or in another project, I'm going to working on a login functionality as well. Don't remember I said earlier that there is a code that is written behind every step. In terms of code reuse, you don't want to re-engineer everything from the scratch. Somebody has written the code before, and you need to use the same step, because that same step is going to do the same thing. You may need to change the parameters, however, but that particular step is using the same method. So when you get answer, you're going to see what I'm trying to explain clearly. So just think about it, that if you have a step here and the code is running behind it, and you have another scenario and you need this particular step in it, you can when you make use of this particular step in a BDD framework, it's going to make use of that particular code. You don't need to write this code from the scratch again. I hope I'm making some sense. Please don't miss the automation class. You are going to see what we're saying there, because you can always, the moment you make reference to this particular step in another scenario, and if this is exactly what you want to use, it's just going to take this step together with it and implement the code that runs at the back of it. That's how it happens. Then in terms of adaptability, I'll use this example again. I said when changes happen, when developers are building, or the users say, oh, we don't want this to when we are logging in, we don't want our login to have just that one step. We want an authentication part to it. We want another level of authentication part to it. Or they just propose a kind of change. As a tester, even before you start to execute, all you just do is just like you writing your manual test script. You come to the test steps, because the change they have mentioned says that another step needs to come in before another step needs to be added for the password. Maybe they want the user to enter the first password and repeat password. Okay, don't forget that originally what they had was this, but now we want original password and repeat password. For example, if it's like a registration functionality. Okay, so for your registration, you want to enter the email, you want to enter the password, and you want to repeat the password. Okay, and they want another step, repeat password, to be entered. So you're going to go to your registration scenario, and you're going to add, I'm just assuming this is a registration scenario. Okay, yeah, and you're going to add, and I enter the repeat password. So this one will be repeat password. So and at this instance, if this is your registration, don't forget that when you in the real life, when you are doing your registration, you enter the first password. The first password must be the same as your repeat password. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to complete that registration. So that's the kind of example. They want a change, but you have your steps written originally. Okay, and they want a change. So it's easily adaptable. You just add your change to the next step if that is where the change would occur. Or if it's going to occur before the original step, you add it to that particular step so that you are already ready even before developer finishes implementing the particular change. And you already know what to test and what code to write for that. And to be honest, it will be the same thing. The only thing that will change will be the locator for where for where the repeat password will be, say on the website. It will be the same code, but the locator will change because you're going to be using Selenium for that. Your locator ID would change. That would happen basically. So that's the kind of example. I hope I've made some sense there. Okay, we've got 3 minutes to go. Yeah. All right. Talking about parameterization, will this parameterization part will always be done on each project? You would always have it, trust me. See, if you are working on a web application, you would always have it. Even if it's an API, you would have parameterization. Don't worry, you'll get to, yeah, you would have it. And if you have, some people may choose to hide their parameter values in a class on their automation project, maybe in their Java class or in their C# class. Some would choose to hide it somewhere so that they don't want everybody to see it. Yeah, so that's basically for tonight. I've got 2 minutes. Is everybody? Please ask all your questions. You can see there's no stupid or silly question here. Ask all your questions so that we know this foundation is tight and everybody is sure that they have a good understanding before we go into the technical part of coding. So you've got to get your gears ready. The coding is not hard. You just need to put your mind to it. And trust me, practice, 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 practice. You don't need to know how to write a code like a developer writes, but you need to know how to write a code to run your tests and be able to go out there and show that you know what you know.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Pat.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Pat. To be honest, I couldn't do better. Actually, you delivered this very well. So, and which I think is really, really good. Like she said, please send any questions. You are free to ask any question, even though it's stupid or you think you should ask. Just ask any questions. That would be good. So next assignment actually, so it's going to be progressive. So like I told you, this is going to be more of practical. So it's not, yeah. So the next assignment that you have, basically based on what we've done right now, so I'm going to share my screen, Pat, if that's okay. Okay, all right. Okay, cool. So the next assignment is for you to go to this particular URL, right? So you can go to this URL from giftread.com, then click on community, and then scroll down and click on create community. So based on what Pat has taught us this evening, so you need to create different communities, right? You need to create public, private, and closed community. So in this exercise, I'm expecting you to use examples, and as well, you need to use parameters as well. So I'm expecting you to create, it's going to be 3 different folds. I'm expecting you to use parameter for the community name, and also categories. You need to use parameters for those ones. So, and as well, you need to use examples. So there are different ways to test this. So this is where you can let your imagination go wide. This is basically a full site that you can test. So how do you test it? Basically, you will have at least, let's say, 3 different scenarios. One scenario for the public, one scenario for the private, one scenario for the closed community. Then after that, you would kind of supply or click on. You don't need, it might not work actually, so you don't need to execute it. Just write it based on your knowledge, what we've done right now. We are still going to go into the coding part that parts mentioned, when you have to link it or bind it with your step definition. But right now, don't worry, what we are doing is just English. Write it as you want to write, you think is the right way, right? And then send it across. So that is the assignment for this week. So you are meant to write a getting statement, or write how you're going to execute this particular, or how you're going to test this particular web page. So using your BDD approach. So I'm focusing only on create community. You don't need to worry about sign up. I think I get this one last week basically. So, but in this particular one, how do you create communities? You want to create different communities using your BDD, using the BDD approach. So, but I want your solution to include parameterization in different ways that we've discussed this evening, using examples, how you pass your parameter in from your step definitions, from your feature steps, and as well as how you can use data tables basically. So that's what I'm expecting you to do. Is that clear? Okay, cool. Thank you. So all right, quickly, if there's no, are we going to be using the same name? Okay, I think I might have answered that. Are we going to be using same name in creating community for? Yeah, you are free to create different. Let me see. Okay, so I'm expecting you to create one scenario actually. Yeah, one scenario, one feature basically. So because that allows you to be able to use examples basically. So rather than creating 2 different scenarios or different, I'm talking about feature, one feature basically, one feature file. So that you're going to have different scenarios inside basically. So you have scenarios for public, scenario for closed, and scenario. So yeah, it's that is a starting point. Someone said one feature, 3 scenarios. That's the starting point. I'm expecting it will be more than 3, because 3 is the standard one. That is when you are testing the valid ones. So if you now consider those invalid scenarios, you would have more than 3. So, and as well as you are going to be doing that, you will look at how to use backgrounds actually. So you need to consider that your scenarios that you are writing, or feature that you're writing, should also have backgrounds as well. So consider those one as well. So like I said, this class is all about practical, so let us consider that. If you have any questions, please let's bring it in next week basically. So any question, which tool is used in writing BDD? Yeah, is in IntelliJ. That's right, it is IntelliJ. IntelliJ is one of them. In this class, we did not want to start IntelliJ. I think I mentioned this last week, because when there's complexity in installing IntelliJ and Java, that people, when they encounter that block, they run away. and eventually, or some people, because of that, they are still installing IntelliJ and Java. Eventually, they don't understand this particular concept that we're talking about. It becomes difficult. Right now, we did not want to complicate that. Let's just use normal text, put it in a notepad, right? It's easy. When we come into IntelliJ, you just need to copy and paste it. But we just want to be sure that everyone understands the concept first before we move into IntelliJ. Next week, we will not move into IntelliJ. We still have a bit of concept to cover. So, and after that, we start into, okay, how do you install IntelliJ? Then it's going to be a bit technical, but I will try, as you can see, we try to break it down into smaller chunk and everything so that everybody carries along. So, and that is the approach that we are using. But you will still go into IntelliJ, you will still write this thing in IntelliJ. At that particular time, I know some people will start to drop, but it's okay. At that time, if you already learned what you have right now, sometimes it's enough for you to get what you are looking for because you already understand the concept. Even with IntelliJ, you just need to copy and paste and put it in where you should be already. So, which I'm going to show you. So, someone is raising their hand. So, is the assignment for everyone or for the tester? Okay, so I won't say the assignment is for everybody that is interested in this, basically. So, but however, this is a automation class, so specifically I can say it is for tester. How long is this course? It is planned to be 10 weeks. So I think this is the third one. So it's planned to be 10 weeks. So by next 2 weeks, so yeah, it's planned to be 10 weeks. So that is the, okay, all right, cool. So it's planned to be 10 weeks. So yeah, today is the second. Yeah, it's planned to be 10 weeks. So okay, today is the second. Yeah, okay. So next week is going to be a bit of theoretical, but it's not going to be theoretical as in just reading the slides. It's going to be with practical aspect as well, actually. So next week I'm going to talk about GitHub, basically, right? Because as a tester, you are going to be uploading your stuff into GitHub without having to complicate the issue of IntelliJ and Java. So we talk about that right now. How do I do GitHub, Git, push and pull, everything like that. So we talk about those ones. So once you are able to master these ones, then IntelliJ is just an idea, it's a facility for you, basically. Whether you get it done or not, while you're able to install it, because the problem from my experience, the problem we had was everyone has got different configurations on their system, so sometimes it's difficult for them to finish the installation. So they would be installing and not focus on the training, because before eventually they lose focus and they will not follow the course. So that's why we are using this approach. So the assignment that you have submitted, please bear with us. We are a small team. Okay, I'm gathering the mentors to come and assist on this one. You will get feedback in due course. When is the due course? I don't know. So basically, you don't need to worry. And in the class, sometimes I would go back to solve the question, basically. So, and so that you can be able to mark it. But as I get the admin working on it, they would give it feedback to everyone when we are able to collect all the everyone that submitted. So if that's okay. All right, so that is it. Thank you so much, Pat, for this, and thanks everyone. So we'll see again next week. So and have a good evening.